She never made the news. No congressional hearing featured her testimony. The 3 companies that wanted her dead officially didn't exist, and the 4th pretended she'd never worked there. But in Silicon Valley, in certain Pentagon offices, in the boardrooms of defense contractors, they still whisper about the analyst who cracked black site protocol and walked away with proof that would collapse a $40 billion industry. If anyone could find her. They've been looking for 17 years. This is her story. If you're loving the content, make sure to subscribe right now so you don't miss us in your recommendations. We upload new, exciting videos every day. Thank you for watching. Let's get into it. Houston, Texas, August 12, 1962. Methodist Hospital, 4:23 a.m. A girl was born during Hurricane Carla's aftermath while the city was still without power. Mother, Rebecca Sterling, 24, petroleum engineer, one of the only women in her field. Father, unknown, never named. Rebecca raised her daughter alone in a Garden Oaks bungalow, working for Shell Oil by day, studying for her master's degree at night. She named the girl Veronica. After the saint, she told people, though Rebecca wasn't religious. The real reason? It meant true image. What Rebecca never told anyone. Veronica's father had been a geologist who discovered something in the Gulf of Mexico that Shell didn't want discovered. He died in a rig accident 3 weeks before Veronica was born. Rebecca knew it wasn't an accident. The severance check that arrived, $50,000, enormous for 1962, came with a visitor. The man wore a Stetson and cowboy boots, spoke with oil money courtesy. Miss Sterling, Shell takes care of its own, for the child's education. He placed an envelope on her kitchen table. Your fiancé was a good man. Tragic, what happened. But life goes on. What did he find? Rebecca asked. The man's smile never wavered. Dry hole, nothing but water and wishful thinking. That's why the rig collapsed. Faulty data. Rebecca knew better, but she took the money for Veronica. Growing up in oil country. Veronica Sterling grew up watching her mother navigate a man's world, watched her stay silent when colleagues took credit for her work, watched her smile through condescension at industry conferences, watched her come home and cry in the bathroom where Veronica wouldn't see. Why do you stay? Veronica asked once, age 12. Because leaving means they win, Rebecca said. And because I'm good at what I do. Someday that will matter more than my gender. It never did. Rebecca topped out at senior engineer despite being smarter than every executive above her. She died at 53, brain aneurysm at her desk, found the next morning by a janitor. Her obituary in the Houston Chronicle was 4 sentences long. But Veronica learned something from watching her mother. How to be invisible, in plain sight. How to let men think they were smarter. How to take notes and remember everything while everyone else forgot. She graduated from UT Austin in 1984 with degrees in computer science and linguistics. The Berlin Wall was still standing. The Cold War was still cold. And the CIA came recruiting. Langley, 1984 to 1991. Veronica Sterling, CIA analyst, Soviet desk. She wasn't a spy. She was something more valuable. She found patterns in data, predicted Soviet moves based on grain shipments and weather reports, tracked missile deployments through electrical usage in Siberian towns. She was brilliant at it, promoted twice in 5 years. But she noticed things. How intelligence was cherry-picked to support policies already decided. How analysts who disagreed with administration positions got sidelined. How data was massaged to justify arms deals, regime changes, funding for operations that had nothing to do with national security and everything to do with corporate interests. In 1989, she wrote a classified memo arguing that the Soviet Union was on the verge of collapse, not from military pressure, but from economic exhaustion. The memo was buried. 2 years later, the USSR fell apart exactly as she'd predicted, and her memo was suddenly discovered and used to justify CIA's successful strategy. Veronica realized accuracy didn't matter. The narrative mattered. When the Cold War ended, Veronica expected relief. Instead, she watched the CIA scramble for new enemies: terrorism, rogue states, cyber threats, anything to justify budgets. She watched intelligence get manufactured, threats get exaggerated, and truth become whatever served the story. In 1991, she resigned. Official reason: pursuing private sector opportunities. Real reason: she couldn't stomach it anymore. San Diego, 1992 to 2000. The contractor years. Veronica moved to San Diego and joined Techdine Solutions, a defense contractor specializing in intelligence software. Officially, data analysis tools for military applications. Unofficially, surveillance systems sold to whoever paid: friendly governments, not-so-friendly governments, corporations, anyone. The money was incredible. 6 figures immediately, stock options, corner office overlooking the bay. Veronica built algorithms that could track individuals across multiple databases, predict behavior based on purchasing patterns, identify dissidents before they organized. She told herself it was legal. All their contracts were approved. Everything went through proper channels. She was just writing code. Then came the meeting that changed everything. 1997, the Manila Project. Her boss, Kent Harrison, VP of Special Projects, ex-cell with silver hair and American flag pin always on his lapel, called her into his office. "Veronica, you're my best analyst. I have something sensitive." "I'm listening." Kent slid a folder across the desk. "Client in Manila. Philippine government needs help identifying communist insurgents. Standard counterinsurgency work." Veronica opened the folder. Lists of names, locations, social media profiles. This is targeting civilians. It's targeting terrorists. These are union organizers, environmental activists, journalists, who are being used by the NPA to destabilize a democratic ally. Kent's voice went hard. "Look, I know you have qualms, but this is authorized. State Department signed off, Defense Department's involved. This is legal, legitimate work." "What happens to the people on these lists?" "They get investigated. If they're innocent, nothing happens." Veronica looked at Kent's face. Practiced sincerity, complete bullshit. She'd seen enough intelligence work to know these people would disappear. Some would die. All because her algorithm flagged them. "I can't do this." "Then you're fired. And you're in violation of your NDA. You breathe a word about this project, we'll destroy you legally and professionally." Veronica stood up. "Then I guess I'm fired." She walked out. Didn't clean out her desk, didn't say goodbye, just walked to her car and drove home. That night, Kent Harrison called her. "Veronica, you're making a mistake. Sleep on it. Come back Monday, we'll forget this happened." "Who's really the client?" "What? Philippine government doesn't have budget for this. Who's paying?" Silence. Then, "Veronica, you're asking questions that will get you hurt. Come back Monday. Be smart." She hung up. But Veronica wasn't smart. She was angry. The hack. Over the weekend, Veronica broke into Techdine's servers, used her old access credentials, which stupidly hadn't been deactivated yet, downloaded everything related to the Manila project, plus other sensitive projects. What she found made Manila look tame. Operation Coastal Watch, Surveillance of environmental activists opposing offshore drilling funded by ExxonMobil. Project Turnkey, tools to suppress labor organizing in Amazon warehouses. Damascus Protocol, assassination targeting software sold to Syrian opposition groups who were funded by CIA front companies. Blacksite Protocol, real-time tracking of journalists investigating defense contractors, complete with plans for reputation management, blackmail, and harassment. Techdine wasn't a defense contractor. It was a private intelligence agency selling oppression as a service. Veronica copied 47 gigabytes of classified data onto 3 separate hard drives. Then she covered her tracks, mostly, and waited. Monday morning, Kent Harrison called. "Veronica, we've had a security incident. Someone accessed restricted files." "I'm sure you wouldn't know anything about that." "Why would I?" "Because you're smart enough to do it and stupid enough to think you're doing the right thing." Kent's voice went cold. "Listen very carefully. You have until 5 p.m. today to return company property. All of it. You do that, you sign an expanded NDA, you take a severance package, and we all move on. And if I don't? Then we make your life hell. Corporate espionage charges, federal prosecution, civil suits that will bankrupt you. You'll spend the next decade in court or prison. Your choice." Veronica hung up, looked at the hard drives on her desk. She had proof of crimes, real crimes, conspiracy, fraud, probably murder. But who would she give it to? The FBI? They probably knew. The media? They'd bury it. Too many powerful people involved. Congress? Bought and paid for. She realized there was no good option, only bad ones. So she chose chaos. The leak. Veronica didn't go to journalists. She went to hackers. Through anonymous channels, she contacted Digital Liberty Front, a hacker collective that specialized in embarrassing powerful people. Arranged a dead drop in Balboa Park, left 2 hard drives and a hollowed-out book in the central library. 3 days later, Techdine's internal documents hit the internet. WikiLeaks, Cryptome, dozens of mirrored sites. 47 gigabytes of corporate surveillance, illegal operations, fraud. The media went insane. Congressional hearings were announced. FBI opened investigations. Techdine's stock collapsed, and Veronica became the most wanted woman in America. The hunt. Techdine didn't rely on law enforcement. They hired Atlas Strategic Group, a private military company specializing in executive protection and asset recovery. Translation: they found people who didn't want to be found and made problems disappear. The FBI did issue a warrant: corporate espionage, theft of classified materials, but Atlas moved faster. 2 days after the leak, 3 men in suits showed up at Veronica's La Jolla apartment. She wasn't there. She'd left the night of the leak, gone to ground with a plan she'd been unconsciously building for years. Veronica Sterling had learned from the best: CIA tradecraft, contractor networks, hacker tools. She knew how to vanish. First 48 hours. Drove to Tijuana, crossed border on foot using tourist visa. Flew from Tijuana to Mexico City using legitimate passport, not yet flagged. In Mexico City, bought fake Canadian passport and driver's license from a forger referred by Digital Liberty Front. Withdrew $30,000 from offshore accounts she'd quietly built over years. Cut and dyed hair, bought new clothes, changed mannerisms. Flew to Montreal as Laura Chen, graphic designer. In Montreal, she disappeared deeper. Found a hacker safe house through encrypted channels. Paid $10,000 for complete identity package, birth certificate, social security number, credit history for Nicole Reeves, encrypted laptop with military-grade security, contact networks for moving across borders. Nicole Reeves was born. Seattle, 2001 to 2008. Veronica, now Nicole, settled in Seattle. got a job as a data analyst at a nonprofit researching homelessness, made $40,000 a year instead of $200,000, lived in a studio apartment in Ballard, rode the bus, became invisible. But she couldn't stay completely hidden. The data analyst in her couldn't stop analyzing. She started noticing patterns. Her nonprofit was funded partly by tech companies, Microsoft, Amazon, early Google money. But the research they produced always somehow concluded that homelessness was a personal failing, not a systemic issue. Policy recommendations always favored corporate interests. Nicole wrote a memo, careful, anonymous, suggesting the research was compromised. The executive director called an all-staff meeting. "We've had a concerning allegation that our research lacks objectivity. I want to be clear. Our donors do not influence our findings. Anyone suggesting otherwise is damaging this organization's reputation and will be terminated." Nicole said nothing, but she understood. You couldn't escape it. Money corrupted everything: government, contractors, even nonprofits. 2008, the crash. The financial crisis hit. Nicole's nonprofit lost funding, laid off half its staff, including her. She collected unemployment, lived on savings, wondered if she should run again or just accept that Nicole Reeves was her permanent identity. Then, she met James. James Okafor, 34, public defender, Nigerian immigrant, idealistic in a way Veronica had forgotten was possible. They met at a community meeting about police violence. James was representing families pro bono. Nicole was there because she couldn't help gravitating toward patterns of injustice. They started talking. Coffee became dinner, became dating, became love, or something like it. James never asked about Nicole's past beyond the basics. Grew up in California, worked in tech, burned out, and changed careers. Nicole never volunteered more. For 3 years, she was almost happy, almost normal, almost convinced that Nicole Reeves could be a real person. Then in 2011, James proposed. "I love you," he said, ring in hand, eyes full of hope. "I want to build a life together." Nicole looked at him and realized she couldn't. Marriage meant paperwork, background checks, social security traces. Nicole Reeves's identity would unravel under scrutiny. "I can't," she said. "Why?" "Because I'm not who you think I am." She told him everything, the real name, the leak, the running, watched his face transform from confusion to shock to something that might have been betrayal. "You lied to me for 3 years. I'm sorry. Who are you, really?" "I don't know anymore." James left. Nicole never saw him again. Later heard through mutual acquaintances he'd moved to Oakland, married a public health nurse, had 2 kids. Good for him. 2012 to 2020. The ghost years. Nicole moved to Portland, then Boise, then Albuquerque, changed names twice more. Rachel Kim, Elizabeth Torres, worked cash jobs, bartender, bookkeeper, dog walker, nothing that required serious background checks. She followed the news obsessively. Techdine had been broken up, executives indicted, but most cut deals. Kent Harrison got 3 years in minimum security prison, out in 18 months. The Manila Project led to congressional hearings, but no real reform. The journalist tracking program was discontinued, but probably just rebranded. Veronica's leak had changed nothing. The machine adjusted and continued. She thought about turning herself in, doing interviews, writing a book, becoming a cause célèbre. But she'd seen what happened to whistleblowers. Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, reality winner. Prison, exile, or destroyed reputation. The system protected itself. So she stayed hidden, grew older, watched the world get worse, surveillance capitalism, mass data collection, the erosion of privacy. Everything she'd warned about normalized and accepted. 2020. COVID. The pandemic hit. Elizabeth Torres, her current name, was living in Taos, New Mexico, working at a bookstore that closed during lockdown. She collected unemployment, stayed in her apartment, watched the world fall apart on screens. In isolation, she started writing, not for publication, just for herself, trying to make sense of the last 20 years, the choices she'd made, whether any of it mattered. She wrote about her mother, about Shell Oil and the geologist who'd found something he shouldn't have. Wrote about the CIA and the stories they told themselves. Wrote about Techdine and the illusion that legality meant morality. Wrote about James and the impossibility of intimacy when your entire life was a lie. After 6 months, she had 400 pages. A memoir nobody would ever read. She titled it, "The Woman Who Knew Too Much." Then she burned it, every page in her fireplace, one at a time. Watched her story turn to ash, because she realized the story didn't matter. The truth didn't matter. Power mattered, and she had none. 2023. The Return. In June 2023, Elizabeth Torres, Veronica Sterling, received an email at an encrypted address she maintained for emergencies. The subject line, "Statute of Limitations Expired." She almost deleted it as phishing, but something made her open it. Ms. Sterling, federal charges related to 2000 corporate espionage were dropped in 2020, statute of limitations. Civil suits settled or dismissed. Techdine Solutions no longer exists. You are not legally wanted. This is not a trap. If interested in telling your story, reply to this email. Sarah Chen, investigative journalist, ProPublica. Veronica stared at the email for an hour. Could be real. Could be an elaborate trap by Atlas or whatever replaced them. She wrote back, "How do I know this is legitimate?" Response came in 10 minutes. "You don't, but I've been researching the Techdine leak for 3 years. I know you're Nicole Reeves / Rachel Kim / Elizabeth Torres. I know you're in Taos. I'm not here to expose you. I'm here to let you decide if you want your story told on your terms." Veronica made a decision. After 23 years, she was tired of running. "I'll meet you, but in public, during daytime, and I record everything." Agreed. The meeting. They met at the Taos Plaza at a cafe with outdoor seating. Sarah Chen was 30, ambitious, hungry, reminded Veronica of herself at that age. "Thank you for meeting me," Sarah said. "Start talking. Why should I trust you?" Sarah pulled out a folder. "Because I've already written the story. You're not the source. You're the victim. I'm exposing what happened to you, not what you did." Veronica opened the folder. Drafts of articles documenting Techdine's operations, Atlas Strategic Group's harassment campaign, the FBI's mishandling of the case. Sarah had sources, former employees, leaked documents, congressional testimony. "This is good work," Veronica admitted. "It's incomplete without you. I need to understand why you did it, what you thought would happen, what did happen. What happened is nothing changed. I destroyed my life for nothing." "Did you?" Sarah leaned forward. "After your leak, 3 similar companies were investigated. Surveillance software sales to authoritarian governments got scrutiny. Reporters started questioning the contractor model. You changed the conversation. And now it's worse than ever. Yes, because power adapts. But that doesn't mean fighting is pointless. It means the fight continues." Sarah pulled out a recording device. "Tell me your story. Your real name, your real story. Let people know what happened. Maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't, but silence guarantees it doesn't matter." Veronica looked at the recording device, thought about her mother dying at her desk, forgotten, thought about the geologist who found something and died for it, thought about 23 years of hiding. "Turn it on," she said. The interview. Veronica talked for 6 hours over 2 days, told everything. Childhood, CIA, Techdine, the leak, the running, the names, the loneliness, the doubt. Sarah asked the hard questions. "Do you regret it?" "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that I lost everything. I don't regret trying." "Would you do it again?" Long pause. "I don't know. Probably not. I was naive, thought truth mattered more than power. Now I know better." "But you're here, telling the truth anyway." "Because I'm old and tired and don't care anymore what happens to me." Sarah published the series in October 2023. 5 articles, front page of ProPublica, syndicated everywhere. The woman who exposed Silicon Valley's secret spy industry. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Media appearances: 60 Minutes, NPR, The Daily Podcast. Veronica, using her real name now, told her story over and over. Some called her a hero. Others called her a traitor. Most people didn't care. It was a 3-day news cycle, then forgotten. But something unexpected happened. Other whistleblowers reached out. People who'd been silenced, threatened, destroyed by the systems they'd tried to expose. They wanted to know, how did you survive? Veronica realized she had accidentally become something she'd never intended. Not a hero, not a martyr, a survivor. And survival was its own form of resistance. 2024. The lawsuit. 6 months after the articles, Veronica sued Atlas Strategic Group and 3 Techdine executives for harassment, illegal surveillance, and conspiracy. The lawsuit wasn't about money. It was about getting them under oath. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Kent Harrison, now 70, silver hair and American flag pin, testified that everything Techdine did was legal and necessary. "Ms. Sterling betrayed her country and her colleagues," he said under oath. "She stole classified information and gave it to our enemies." Veronica's lawyer asked, "Which enemies? The American public who learned what you were doing?" Harrison's face went red. "That information endangered lives." "Whose lives? Name one person who died because of Ms. Sterling's actions." He couldn't, because nobody had. The only people who'd suffered were executives who'd been prosecuted and contractors who'd lost revenue. The jury awarded Veronica $4.3 million in damages. She donated every penny to press freedom organizations and whistleblower defense funds. 2025. The book. Veronica wrote a book, not a memoir, a warning. Title: The Surveillance State You Don't See. How Private Contractors Are Erasing American Freedom. It became a surprising bestseller, not because people cared about whistleblowing, but because by 2025, everyone was drowning in surveillance. Doorbell cameras, data brokers, social media algorithms, AI tracking everything. Veronica's message resonated. You're being watched, not by the government, but by companies who sell your behavior to the highest bidder. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is business model. She did a book tour, 70 cities, hundreds of interviews. At every event, someone asked, "What can we do?" Her answer? Stop thinking someone will save you. Save yourself. Use encryption, delete apps, pay cash, become harder to track. And most importantly, when you see something wrong, say something, even if it costs you. Especially if it costs you. Denver, Colorado, March 15th, 2027. Veronica Sterling, age 65, speaking at University of Denver Law School. Annual Whistleblower Ethics Symposium. Auditorium packed with students who were born after 9/11, who'd never known privacy, who thought surveillance was normal. A student raised her hand. "Miss Sterling, you said telling the truth cost you everything. Would you advise us to do the same? Veronica looked at the audience. No. I'd advise you to be smarter than me. Build coalitions before you act. Document everything. Have lawyers ready. Don't be a lone wolf, be part of a pack. But what if there is no pack? What if you're the only one who sees the problem? Veronica smiled sadly. Then you have a choice. Stay silent and stay safe, or speak up and accept the consequences. Neither choice is wrong. Heroism isn't mandatory. Surviving is enough. But you chose to speak. I did, and I lost 23 years of my life. I missed relationships, career, normalcy. Was it worth it? She paused. Ask me in another 20 years. The audience laughed, but Veronica was serious. She still didn't know if it had been worth it. April 2027. The phone call. Veronica's cell phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. Hello? Miss Sterling? This is Detective Maria Gonzalez, San Diego PD. I'm investigating a cold case, the death of Kent Harrison. Veronica felt cold. Kent's dead? Found in his home 3 days ago. Apparent suicide, gunshot wound, left a note. But some things don't add up. Why are you calling me? Because his suicide note mentioned you. Said, Veronica was right. It ate me alive. Better this than prison again. Miss Sterling, what did he mean? Veronica sat down. I don't know. But she did know. Kent Harrison had been subpoenaed to testify in another whistleblower case, this one involving weapons sales to Saudi Arabia. He was looking at real prison time, not minimum security camp, and he'd chosen this instead. Miss Sterling, did Mr. Harrison ever threaten you? 27 years ago, yes. And recently? No. I haven't spoken to him since the trial. Detective Gonzalez was quiet. His family says you destroyed his life. His wife wants to sue you for harassment. I didn't harass anyone. I told the truth about what his company did. They say the truth was distorted, that you had an agenda. Veronica laughed bitterly. My agenda was not wanting people to die because of surveillance software. If that's controversial, we're more fucked than I thought. Miss Sterling, Detective, I didn't kill Kent Harrison. He killed himself because he couldn't live with what he'd done. That's not my fault. She hung up. That night, Veronica couldn't sleep. Thought about Kent. Silver hair, flag pin, American exceptionalism as identity. He'd believed he was the good guy, probably still believed it when he pulled the trigger. Maybe that was the real tragedy. Not that evil people did evil things, but that ordinary people convinced themselves evil was necessary. Summer 2027, the documentary. A filmmaker named Jordan Lee approached Veronica about a documentary. I want to explore what happens to whistleblowers after the news cycle ends, the long-term cost, the psychological damage. Sounds depressing. It is, but it's real, and nobody talks about it. Veronica agreed. Spent 3 months being filmed, her daily life in Denver, visits to her mother's grave in Houston, conversations with other whistleblowers. The documentary, The After, Life Beyond the Leak, premiered at Sundance in 2028, won the Audience Award. Netflix bought it for $3 million. The most powerful scene? Veronica visiting the nonprofit in Seattle where she'd worked as Nicole Reeves. The organization had been renamed, restructured. Nobody there remembered her. I spent 3 years here, Veronica told the camera. Made friends, did good work. As far as they know, Nicole Reeves just disappeared one day. No goodbye, no explanation, like I never existed. Does that bother you? Jordan asked off camera. It bothers me that I've left ghosts everywhere, versions of myself scattered across the country, each one thinking they were real. Which one was real? Veronica looked at the camera. Maybe none of them. Maybe I'm still looking. 2029, The Reckoning. At 67, Veronica Sterling finally stopped running. Not because she found peace, but because she was tired. She settled permanently in Denver, bought a small house in Park Hill, adopted 2 rescue dogs, started teaching cybersecurity ethics at community college. Her students were mostly working adults, IT professionals, data analysts, people who worked in the systems she'd tried to expose. They were skeptical of her. "Miss Sterling, you broke the law. How is that ethical?" "I prioritized human rights over corporate property." "You think that's wrong?" "I think there are proper channels. And when proper channels are controlled by the people you're trying to expose?" The debates were frustrating and exhilarating. These students hadn't lived through her battles. They thought the system worked if you worked the system. Veronica tried to warn them. "You'll learn. Everyone learns eventually. The question is whether you'll act when you do." October 15th, 2031. Veronica Sterling died of a stroke in her sleep, age 69. Her dogs found her the next morning. The obituary in the Denver Post called her controversial whistleblower and privacy advocate. 600 words summarizing a complicated life into digestible mythology. The funeral was small. A dozen former colleagues, some students, journalists who'd covered her story. No family. Her mother had died decades ago and she'd never had children. Sarah Chen gave the eulogy. Veronica Sterling was difficult, stubborn, uncompromising. She wasn't a perfect hero. She was a flawed person who made a hard choice and lived with the consequences. She taught us that whistleblowing isn't a moment of glory. It's a lifetime of loss. And she did it anyway. That's courage. They buried her next to her mother in Houston. The headstone read, Veronica Sterling, 1962 to 2031. She told the truth. The rest is history. The legacy. 3 years after Veronica's death, Congress passed the Corporate Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act. Stronger legal protections, financial support, retaliation penalties. It was nicknamed the Sterling Act. Veronica would have laughed. Too little, too late, she'd have said, and the corporations will find loopholes within 6 months. She'd have been right. They did. But the act existed, and it helped people. Not everyone, not every time, but some people, sometimes. In 2035, a young data analyst at a defense contractor discovered her company was selling facial recognition to a dictatorship. She remembered reading about Veronica Sterling in college, remembered the documentary. She gathered evidence, contacted journalists, hired lawyers. Did it smart, not alone. When the story broke, she gave an interview. Veronica Sterling showed me what not to do. Don't go it alone. Don't run. But she also showed me what matters. Tell the truth, even when it's hard. The analyst kept her job. The company paid fines. Reforms happened. Small victory, but a victory. The safety deposit box. 5 years after Veronica's death, the bank finally tracked down her estate administrator and opened her safety deposit box. Inside, 3 driver's licenses. Veronica Sterling, real. Nicole Reeves, fake. Elizabeth Torres, fake. A thumb drive labeled, If I Die. A letter addressed, To whoever finds this. A photograph. Young woman and a little girl at a Houston park, 1970s. The thumb drive contained one document, an encrypted memoir, 600 pages, password protected. The password, after some investigation, Rebecca Sterling, 1938, her mother's name and birth year. The memoir detailed everything. Operations Veronica never went public with, names of contractors still operating, evidence of programs that continued under new names. The estate administrator gave it to ProPublica. They published excerpts in 2036 titled The Sterling Files, What She Couldn't Say While Alive. Another scandal, more hearings, more reforms that would be undermined within years. But the truth was out. Again. Still. Always. The letter read, "My name was Veronica Sterling. My mother was Rebecca Sterling, a woman who stayed silent when speaking up would have cost her everything. She taught me that silence was survival. I learned she was wrong. Silence is slow death. Speaking up is fast death. But at least you die having said something. I don't regret exposing Techdine. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that 20 years later, the same systems are operating under new names. I regret that telling the truth cost me every relationship I tried to build, every identity I tried to inhabit, every moment of peace I almost achieved. But I don't regret the choice. If you're reading this, maybe you're facing a similar choice. Here's what I learned. 1. You can't change the system alone, but you can make it harder for the system to operate in darkness. 2. Telling the truth will cost you. Decide what you're willing to pay before you start. 3. The system doesn't die, it adapts. Your job is to keep exposing it as it evolves. 4. Heroism is overrated. Survival is underrated. Sometimes just making it through is enough. 5. Document everything. Trust few people. Encrypt your life. I lived 23 years under false names before I could reclaim my real one. That's the price I paid. It might have been too high, I honestly don't know. But I'm glad I paid it. Because the alternative was becoming my mother, brilliant, capable, silent, dead at her desk, forgotten in 4 sentences. I was difficult. I was uncompromising. I was probably wrong about some things, but I was heard. And maybe that matters. Or maybe it doesn't. You decide. Veronica Sterling, 2031. Epilogue, 2040. 9 years after Veronica's death, a congressional intern named Jessica Torres, no relation to Elizabeth Torres, was organizing archived testimony from the 2020's defense contractor hearings. She came across Veronica Sterling's testimony, 6 hours of detailed explanation about how surveillance capitalism worked, how contractors operated, how the whole system functioned. Jessica watched all 6 hours. Then she started researching. She found the ProPublica articles, the documentary, the Sterling Act, the posthumous memoir, pieced together a life lived in pieces. She wrote her thesis on it. The Cost of Truth, Veronica Sterling and the Whistleblower's Dilemma. Her advisor asked, "What's your conclusion? Was Sterling a hero or a cautionary tale?" Jessica thought carefully. Both. She showed that telling the truth matters, and that it destroys you. Those aren't contradictions, they're the same truth. Would you make her choice? I don't know. Ask me when I have something worth losing. 3 years later, Jessica Torres, now a junior staffer at the Senate Intelligence Committee, discovered irregularities in contractor oversight, evidence of the same programs Veronica had exposed, operating under new names, approved through new loopholes. She sat in her office, looking at the classified documents, thinking about a woman who died before Jessica was born, thinking about the choice, thinking about the cost, thinking about her mother, her career, her future. She opened an encrypted email account and contacted ProPublica. Subject line, "I have something you need to see." And the cycle continued. Veronica Sterling existed for 69 years. 23 of them under false names. She exposed a surveillance industry worth billions, destroyed her life doing it, and died with only her truth left as legacy. This is the price of living in between. You give up everything for a principle that might not matter, but you do it anyway, because someone has to. And maybe that's enough.